Welcome to Lead with Hope, the podcast where we explore the power of hope, leadership, and resilience in today's world. I'm Brandi Kelly, and each week I will bring you stories, insights, and actionable advice from leaders, innovators, and changemakers who are using hope as their compass to navigate challenges, create positive impact, and inspire others to do the same. Whether you're a seasoned leader or just beginning your journey, this podcast is here to remind you that no matter the obstacle, hope is the fuel that can drive transformation. So let's dive in and discover how you can lead with hope. Good morning. Today, I am honored to welcome Dr. Chris Culver. He's a thought leader, an advocate for kindness, and he's dedicated to empowering educators and leaders through the science of kindness. As the founder of Orange Sparrow and a Gen Z alpha expert, he helps build positive cultures where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued. With over a decade in educational leadership and a doctorate in culture and motivation, he now consults nationally and teaches future educators at Oklahoma City University. His motto: if you cannot find the light, be the light. Welcome, Chris. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. And I am so excited to hear more about your story. I'm curious, what sparked your passion for education and leadership? And how did kindness become the cornerstone of your work?
So it's hilarious. I have loved school since I was a little kid. My 10th birthday party was actually in Office Depot. And so my dad will tell the story that when other kiddos were wanting toys, I was wanting a pointer and globe. So I knew that I was always going to be a teacher. When I graduated high school, my mom and my stepdad discouraged me from being a teacher, as we've probably all heard. You're not going to make any money. You're going to be poor. And so I pursued a business administration degree, but I dropped out 3 times. I could not figure out statistics, microeconomics, accounting. All of those pieces were so difficult for me. And so when I stepped back and on my 4th try, I attempted school again, and I got on the path of English education. And it was still challenging, don't get me wrong, but I found more success than I did challenges on that journey. And so I felt like I was leading into my purpose of being an educator. I served in the classroom for several years, and then I said I would never be an administrator and got my master's in school administration, said I would never do middle school, ended up as a middle school administrator. And it was in that middle school as an assistant principal where I worked for a campus leader. And I really hate to even use this description, but the individual was like Hitler and the devil mixed together. And so when we had a staff of 80 and 50 of them left at the end of the year, I was really concerned. Mm-hmm. And the response was, we have a teacher problem. And I was really bothered by that statement, because I believe that as leaders, we are the ones responsible for cultivating a culture that retains and motivates people. Mm-hmm. And so as I look back on those years now, I'm so grateful for that opportunity, because it led me to researching school culture, motivation, the collective impact on retention at the middle school level to understand what retains employees. And so had I not had that experience, had I not jumped into that work, I don't know that I would have gotten my doctorate. So I'm grateful for that. And then most recently, I served as a cabinet level administrator in a district here in Oklahoma City. And so I found kindness as a cornerstone of my life in about 2019, 2020. I've always been a positive person. I think back to on social media a couple of weeks ago, a friend reached out from high school and she's like, I'm so glad to see you're doing well. You're always so positive. And I don't have that same recollection of high school. So I'm like, okay, I really appreciate that. But in 2019, when I was working at that building with that principal, I was waving the white flag to central office. Nobody was answering the call to help some of the disastrous things that were happening on that campus. And I had to call the employee assistance helpline. And I was really embarrassed and really ashamed of having to go that far. But as I look back, I'm not now, right? Like, I'm really grateful. I found kindness for myself, to put myself first, to pour into myself, to understand what's going on. And I know so many educators are facing the same challenges. And so I'm on a mission to spread kindness, love, joy, hope, and optimism wherever I go, to help those who may be navigating similar challenges that I have personally or professionally, just to let them know that there is a kind way to lead your life, and you can be kind to yourself and kind to others and not lose hope as you talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said about, waving that white flag, because I think that's a courageous act. Sometimes in leadership, we can only do so much. And so we always have the choice to be kind, but we can't control what other people do, right? We just have to focus on what we do. And we have to have that self-compassion and that self-love, and then continue to act in kindness, right?
That's it. And I think even in spaces that maybe we aren't I think, remember that title doesn't necessary to be a leader. And
Right.
so in spaces in which we can show leadership attributes or qualities, I think we should, whether that's being a teacher, leader, an assistant principal, instructional, whatever your title may be. I think we can lead in that way to cultivate the space for us. But we all know that if the top leadership, the person who's in charge of making the decisions, is toxic, it's really hard to keep going. And so I really appreciate your push there about self-compassion and self-love, because in those spaces where we don't think we have motivation to keep going, that's exactly it. It's going to be the compassion and self-love that's going to be the motivator to keep going.
Absolutely, 100%. And the other thing that you said there was, you said you would never be an administrator. You said you would never work with middle school, right? That has been a lesson that I've learned the hard way as well. Never say never unless you plan to do what you say you will never do, because that's just how it happens in life.
That's exactly it. And this is even more like comical in the whole scheme of things. I said I would never go back to that campus with that principal. And wouldn't you know, I went back to that campus and I was like, okay, I've got to stop saying never.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Now, Chris, I say hope without action is just wishful thinking. And we don't have the time or the resources to waste on wishful thinking. Now, you're a champion of the science of kindness, and you're very passionate about building cultures of belonging. And we align, I think, in that passion and in that mission. But what intentional habits help you to live out that mission with purpose and consistency in your life?
Well, first and foremost, we're human, right? We have to remember humans are messy. And so we are human. We have to have grace and compassion for ourselves as we navigate life, because lifes. And so one of the things that I have really been intentional about is living in the present. And that's hard. It is really hard sometimes when we live in a culture and a society that is wired for constant consumption of information and scrolling on social media. We're constantly consuming things and our brains are not wired for that. So being present is really important. When I engage with individuals, I always assume positive intent, ask questions to understand, seek to understand, so that I can have empathy, right? I don't understand what somebody else's story necessarily is in walking their day-to-day life, but I can try my best to be a shoulder partner, a thought partner, a holding hand, whatever they need in that space, because there's so many challenges that people are navigating, that a smile could change, that a kind word could change, a compliment can change. I'll vulnerably share that I have a loved one in the hospital. And so at the hospital, I was still sharing compliments. Gosh, I get emotional. I was sharing compliments with people, and it made me smile and made them smile. And so I think about the power of a kind word or a smile in any kind of situation that will rewire it for us and for other people. And so really focused on spreading compliments and also finding gratitude in every situation that life is happening for us and not to us. And it is a perspective shift. It is a mindset shift. But when you look for the good in life, as Mel Robbins tells us, we look for hearts or we look for problems. When we're looking for hearts, we're going to find the hearts. But if we're looking for problems, we'll find the problems. And so I have decided that in this life, I'm going to look for all the great things, and I'm going to celebrate those things, and the challenges and any of the setbacks that are there are only fuel to be the greater comeback that I have. And so it's all motivation to keep going.
Oh, I love all of that. That's just so well said. And I believe that what you focus on is what you grow in your life. It's kind of like that law of attraction. And we need the good stuff. We need the faith and the hope and the love and all of the joy. And that's what we need to cultivate especially in our schools, because our kids are really counting on us. And, with educators, so many of our educators are unsung heroes. I do believe that to my core, but, as a superintendent, and probably when by the time this releases, I will be a former superintendent, because I'm stepping out of this role and I'm going to do my business, Spark Hope EDU, full time.
Amazing.
But Chris, what would you say to those leaders who they do want to cultivate hope and kindness and joy? And our world is becoming increasingly toxic. And that is going to permeate our schools. And there are so many challenges. But what would you say to those leaders who want that, but unfortunately, that's not where they're living right now, and they need the encouragement to keep going?
It's going to sound cliche, but it starts with you. You have to be the one to, in a space of negativity, be the positive light. Even though the situation I was navigating at that campus was really toxic, I took care of my people. I was in the hallway supporting people. I was building relationships with students. I was celebrating my grade. I was doing all the things that I could to bring me love and light and to bring those people love and light. And that was noticed at the site level and district level. And so it all starts with you. It starts with you taking that small action. And I say small action because oftentimes we think about kindness or hope or faith or any of these things as these big grandiose ideas that we have to do. And it's not. It's a smile. It's opening the door for a colleague. It's saying good morning. It's using someone's name. It's offering to let them go to the restroom, right? It's these small things that really can change the culture. But I think more than that too, in a season of transition, which we really are right now, we're getting ready for the new school year. Right. We have teachers changing grade levels. You probably have principals shifting around in your district. This is a great time to be vulnerable and garner feedback from our staff. Should we keep doing? What should we start doing? And what should we stop doing? But I say that with this big push. Please don't be defensive. Please listen to hear the people, assume positive intent, and work collaboratively with everyone to ensure that they know there's a culture of belonging for everyone to have a safe space, to elevate voice, and to have part of the choice. Because as humans, we're wired to belong. We are wired to want to have control. This small process, although it doesn't really give them control, it makes us feel like we have control. We get to say things vulnerably without judgment or fear of retaliation. And we feel like we get to belong because we're having a voice into how we improve the space. And so as a leader, that's up to you. That's up to you to create that space and that opportunity for these individuals to share that feedback. But also it's up to you to smile, to be positive, share compliments. And so all of it really starts with the leader who's in charge if they choose to make that their mission.
Yeah. And I think what you schedule is what you get done. And it's so easy to get stuck in the office.
Yes.
Working on all of the administrative kinds of tasks. And so we have to schedule and be intentional because it's hard to get out of the office sometimes. And the other thing I will say about that is when the norm is toxicity and the norm is what is driving the culture, you've got to recognize that. And you as the leader have to find a circle of people to support you and to help you with your mission of sparking hope or kindness or whatever it is that you're really trying to foster in that culture. And it's not easy. Like you said, it sounds cliche and it sounds, like a grandiose idea, but it does. It starts with you and it starts with your mindset, because I believe that mindset matters, and how you model and cultivate that, what I call optimistic outlook in your leadership, is so incredibly important. So that's a perfect segue into my next question. Why does that mindset matter now more than ever?
Well, let me back up onto the little bit of the last question. I'll segue into this, and I have a quick story. And so when I got moved back so I was a school climate and culture specialist for a district for about 3 weeks. I was really excited because that was my EDD research. I was like, this is my jam. I'm supporting middle schools. 3 weeks into the school year, the assistant superintendent called and said, hey, you're going back to this building because they have already used, now remember, we're in the first 3 weeks of school. They've already used 800 days of suspension and their attendance is like 68%. They need some help. It's falling apart. So when I get back, it looked like the Wild Wild West. I was like, what is happening in here? And what I realized is we were looking for problems. And when you look for problems, as we've talked about, you're going to find problems. And so I decided to flip the script. And I decided to celebrate students. And so we did a student of the week. The teacher selected the student, and I would go in on Friday with a certificate, and it was 7th grade. So a $7 gift card from a local gas station, and try to make a big deal out about this. And there was one student who was a frequent flyer to my office. He and I were besties, and his mom and I texted on the regular basis. And so there was one week where he was recommended for our student of the week. And there's no way this kid's getting the award. And as I drove home that night, I realized that's not fair. That those teachers saw moments of brilliance with him that I didn't get to see. And so the next day I came in and I said, yeah, we're gonna recognize that kiddo. And so I went in that day and I did the whole shebang and recognized Derek for the work that he had done. And he looked at me and he was like, Culver, there's no way I got this award. And I was like, you did. And so we took a picture and we sent it to his mom, and she wrote this really nice text message. And I think to share that with you is because mindset matters. Had I gone in and looked for all the negativity, that kid may not have been recognized and had growth. And I'm not saying that our behavior problems stopped there. That's not what I'm saying. But we made significant improvements and they were less frequent. And he knew he had strategies in place and there were spaces he could go prior to escalating to that level. And I think about now in a time in which our kids are lonely and they are saying they don't have friends. 1 in 10 say they don't have friends. 50% of adolescents say they're lonely. And it's not actually about being lonely, it's about being disconnected. And we're in a world in which we live on a phone instead of being outside playing and connecting. We've lost executive functioning skills. We've lost a lot of these things that now educators and teachers and leaders are having to incorporate into the day-to-day. And so when we think about our mindset, are we looking for problems? Are we helping students build bridges that maybe they don't have access to or don't know about because they're limited in a world in which it's happening, right? It's changed so much. And so we've moved away from just teaching content. We're now teaching students how to be friends, how to collaborate, how to problem solve, how to be empathetic, right? So I think more now than ever, really, your mindset does matter. And I think from my own experience, had I shifted, it could have looked a lot differently.
Yeah. And I will even take it a step further there, Chris. I think sometimes we're teaching as leaders, we're teaching our staff, we're teaching our parents, we're teaching some of those other individuals that we come into contact with how to connect, how to build community, how to belong, because of a lot of it is the phones. We are so disconnected and we crave that sense of belonging. That's a basic human need. And so 100% that mindset piece matters, and what we focus on grows. And as we face the challenges, and you as someone who understands the importance of human connection, can you maybe share a moment where you faced adversity but chose to lead with kindness and hope instead of fear and frustration, if I can get that word out?
Yes. So immediately a story comes to mind. And when I was working at the district office, I had started, so the district that I had worked with was under state takeover, the first district in the state to ever be taken over by the State Department of Education. And so came back and I was director of federal programs for a little while. And then I was interim elementary director for a little bit. And then during that time, I was curriculum and instruction, and then ended up being secondary director. Well, I was interim secondary director prior to being named executive director. And in that interim, it was in the middle of the school year. The executive director decided to retire. And so the secondary team was in disarray. I mean, we had just a ninth grade principal that didn't get along with the high school principal and middle school. It was just discombobulated. And on top of that, we had the union involved and school board members, and you just know how that can get really muddy. And I could have easily gone in with an approach of iron fist, and this is going to be the way, and we're going to move forward. But rather, I called all the parties to the table. And I said, we got to figure this out. We are a team. You may not like me. You may not agree with what's happening. We may not all get along, but we are here for students, and we have to have kindness for one another. And I have to have kindness for you. And we have to work professionally and be respectful. And so we had to learn how to talk at a table of like 15 people just to get through it. And it was really challenging. I was not well received in the time because of the transition. I get it. When I ended up leaving the district, those individuals came back and said, man, we're really sorry. We wish we would have embraced you a little bit differently when you first started. You did a great job, which I really appreciate, right? You don't always see that until sometimes at the end. Right. But in that moment, that was not it. And I will tell you, I had lots of fear in my gut. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. This could blow up in my face. But I decided to lean all the way in and see what happened. And I'll tell you, it was a moving experience. I'm not saying we were best friends by the time we left. I'm saying that we could work professionally and respectfully across the different campuses with different leaders, and we made it to the finish line, and no one died. We all got there, right? And so sometimes that's hard. I think about in spaces, and as a superintendent, Brandi, you're moving people around that are gonna be best served for that community, that campus, right, those students. And so I think about sometimes in this time now where friends are being moved around that maybe they don't have a choice. They're being moved to a different campus and they feel a certain way. And when they call, they'll vent their frustrations, and I've sat in a different seat, so I understand it. And I'll say, listen, they're leaning on your strengths. You've got to lean all the way into it and just go with it, right? And it's hard. It's hard for those people. But we have that mindset, and when we use that challenge to fuel us to keep getting better and to grow, it really does. And so that's kind of my own experience of pulling from what I had to navigate vulnerably to help other people navigate similar situations as well.
Yeah, that's a great example. And it just reminds me that fear restricts and love expands. So when we operate in that love mode, I think that we're going to harness the power of hope and kindness and all of the good things that we want to put into the world. But it doesn't mean it's going to be easy, and it doesn't mean it's going to happen quickly, but we have to keep focusing on what we can do, what's in our circle of control, so that we can build that excellence we want for our schools and our communities, right?
Right. It's like Jim Collins says, from going good to great, we have to take those small actions every single day. Like, it's just those consistent steps. It's not the big things. The big thing will come based on your daily small steps, because success knows no speed, right? It's all about your consistent efforts.
Yeah, consistency compounds for sure. Absolutely. And, thinking about that excellence piece, I'm wondering, how do you tap in to the potential whenever you're offering your keynotes, or you're doing your work and putting kindness into the world? How do you help other people tap into their potential and pursue excellence with compassion instead of comparison?
Well, we have to remember we all add value to this space. We all add value to this world. We all make a difference in this world. And so my message is always keep being you, because you're exactly what the world needs. One of the things that I have found in research that I just loved is the power of affirmations. And so I have a lot in my workshops. I have a lot of individuals who will write as an activity 18 affirmations. And first, when I say 18, everyone has like googly eyes, like, what in the world? And it's because the research says that at number 11, you get really frustrated. You're not where to keep going. You're like, I'm out of words. But 11 to 18 require you to really dig deep. And those are the most vulnerable affirmations about yourself, and it helps you remember the value that you add to the space. And so as a college professor working with new teachers and new leaders going into the field, I also have them do this on the first day of class, right? We are going to write affirmations about ourselves. This stuff is hard. We're going to be challenged, but we're going to remember the value that we add. Another thing that I really enjoy is finding 3 good things in the moment right now. And so every class period, every training session, everything that I do, I start with, what are 3 things that we're grateful for? And I'm the 4th one, and then we usually start and we move forward. And I share that because a student raised their hand vulnerably this semester and said, hey, Dr. Culver, I'm grateful that we do gratitude at the start of each class. And I was like, help me understand like why you're grateful for that. And she said, we get to hear vulnerably what other people are celebrating or navigating in life, and we get to be there for them. We may not be able to understand their full story, but we get to build empathy with them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel more moved about this than the content we're about to teach tonight, right? And so it's those small things. It's gratitude. It's affirming ourselves. Yeah. It's being kind and letting us all remember that we are amazing, and we are shining lights everywhere we can if we choose to believe that about ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so good. So good. And gratitude is one of those habits that I believe rewires our brain. It changes the way that we look in the world and the way that we perceive the world. Some of my work, I talk about trauma and the fact that trauma literally defined is a wound. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily about what happened to us, but it's the way we perceive it and the way we hold it in our body. Mm-hmm. And I think that gratitude helps us to release that, and it helps us to change the way that we're looking at the world, and we are allowed to experience what I have found as post-traumatic growth instead of post-traumatic stress. So with this work, Dr. Culver, I am just loving this conversation and would love to continue it. I'm honored that you have joined my community of hope by coming on my podcast. But before we close, I want to hear from you. What's lighting you up right now? What is maybe an initiative or a project or something that's giving you hope for a better future?
Well, I'm currently working on a children's book that will launch in August that will have different teaching components to it. It's about Ollie the Orange Sparrow and his sense of belonging as he navigates the forest to find kindness. And so as someone who does kindness assemblies and spread kindness across the United States and nationally, I have an international call tomorrow with kindness. It's all about making sure that we're starting young and getting all the way to the oldest person we can, because it really is ensuring that kindness starts with me. And that's what keeps fueling me up and motivating me to ensure that we're reaching and teaching kindness. I'm putting out motivational videos and connecting with as many people as I can as I'm trying to build a community of kindness. And so, Brandi, I'm so grateful to share this space with you to talk about kindness and hope and joy. I love the work that you're doing and the mission that you're on to spread hope where you go and to teach about hope as well, because it's really needed in this world more than ever. And so just thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you do. I'm truly grateful for you.
Yes, and I appreciate you. And If our listeners want to learn more about your mission and what you're doing in the world, where can they connect with you?
Absolutely. I'm on all social media platforms at Dr. Chris Culver. And then my website's www.orangesparrow.org. And all my information's there with tons and tons of free resources, as well as the blog, The Kind Voice. So feel free to check us out.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on the show. And Chris, let's spark some hope together.
Let's do it. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lead with Hope podcast, where we share stories and strategies to help you rise, lead, and redefine what's possible. If today's episode inspired you, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and leave a review. Your support helps us reach more leaders like you who are ready to lead with heart, purpose, and resilience. Don't forget to visit sparkhopeedu.com for resources, upcoming events, and tools to help you build a culture of hope in your life and leadership. We're so grateful to be part of your journey. Until next time, keep leading with hope.